each will share some experience and solutions for decarbonizing and increasing rural resilience and prosperity through bio-based value chain innovations.
Good day to all. Thank you very much for joining the East Asia Forum 2022. You have joined a session on achieving carbon neutrality through bio-based value chains. Let us begin. Let me introduce session chair, Ms. Yolanda Fernandez-Lomen, Country Director of People's Republic of China, Resident Mission of ADB. Over to you, Yolanda.
Thank you, Akiko. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to the session. In the next hour, we will be discussing key insights in connection with the importance of bio-based value chains for carbon neutrality and rural prosperity. Let me start by highlighting that promoting low-carbon rural development is at the core of the PRC's rural vitalization strategy and carbon neutrality targets, a key area of ADB support. In this regard, the PRC's successful transition to more sustainable and climate-resilient rural development in partnership with ADB can be a model for other developing member countries. To learn more about it, we have an excellent group of experts who will discuss the lessons learned from the PRC's successful experiences and the opportunity to disseminate those through active South-South knowledge sharing. With no further ado, let's start by inviting my colleague Tom Panella, Director of the Environment, Natural Resources and Agriculture Division in ADB's East Asia Department. He will present the highlights of ADB's support to low-carbon rural development. The floor is yours, Tom.
Thank you very much, Yolanda, and let me get my presentation up here. Okay, thank you very much. And it's a pleasure for me to be here at the East Asia Forum today. I'm going to talk a little bit about low carbon rural development in the PRC. And one wouldn't normally think of rural development being incredibly carbon intensive. And perhaps compared to some urban development, it's not. But as we'll see, there are still significant greenhouse gas emissions coming from rural development and agriculture in particular. Yet at the same time, there's opportunities for mitigation. So let me just build a little bit upon what Yolanda said. Then this is in reference to the ADB-PRC country partnership strategy, which was approved about a year ago. And there are two pillars especially relevant for my division's work and for this discussion in general. The first is pillar 1 for the CPS, the country partnership strategy, and that's environmentally sustainable development, which is central to our operations. And the other is climate change, adaptation, and mitigation. And again, this provides a very strong framework for us to pursue decarbonization through rural vitalization. Additionally, we see that ADB has really increased its ambitions to be a climate bank and pledging 100 billion in climate finance in the period from 2019 to 2030. This is also a driver for us to look at climate change. And another facet of our programs is we take a programmatic approach, which is long-term and holistic, so we can address climate change issues in an integrated manner along with environmentally sustainable development and increase in rural livelihoods and improving rural conditions in general. And ADB's value addition in this approach comes through institutional strengthening, innovation, and knowledge, importantly. And my division in particular is promoting climate resilient and nature-based solutions for integrated water and natural resources management, climate smart and digital solutions for sustainable agriculture and resilient food systems, as well as river basin institutional reforms and landscape planning, and green finance and innovative finance in general, all of which provides opportunities to promote a decarbonized and climate change agenda. Now, in addition to ADB, the PRC also has very substantial climate ambitions. And in 2020, President Xi Jinping announced that the PRC will strengthen its nationally determined contributions, aiming to peak carbon emissions at 2030, but achieving carbon neutrality by 2060, which is a substantial target indeed. And in the short term, under the current 5-year plan, we see the PRC looking to reduce carbon intensity from 2020 levels, same time reducing energy intensity, importantly increasing forest coverage that we'll talk a little bit about in the next slides, and increasing the mix of non-fossil sources of fuel and renewables in the energy mix. And while we're focusing on mitigation, it's important to note that ADB is actively involved in supporting the Ministry of Ecology and Environment with the National Climate Change Adaptation Strategy to strengthen economic and social resilience, improve strategic planning, risk assessment, climate finance, and again, promoting the use of nature-based solutions in integrated flood management. And specifically for agriculture, this year, the #1 central policy document on agriculture really focused on the challenges of climate change, both mitigation and adaptation, and looked at promoting renewable energy, new agricultural technologies, and improved crop and livestock waste management to address the situation. Now, looking specifically at the agricultural sector, we can see where the sources of greenhouse gas come from and also the potential opportunities to mitigate them. Now, the agriculture sector accounts for about 10% of total greenhouse gas emissions in the PRC. Yet we've seen that number increase by 18% between 1990 and 2018. And this is primarily of methane emissions from increased beef and rice production. And if we actually look at methane production from the agricultural sector, it's a total of 42% of the PRC's overall methane emissions. And as we all know, that methane is a much more potent greenhouse gas than CO2. And in the PRC, is responsible for about 12 to 15% of methane emissions from agriculture globally. So it is quite an important contributor. And with increasing prosperity, we're seeing the continued increase in dietary preferences towards meat and other products that can drive further methane emissions. But this can be mitigated through new technologies, but will require intensive efforts to raise awareness and develop an institutional and policy framework to encourage better practices. And we need to look at greenhouse gas emissions also not just from agriculture, but in the broader picture from rural vitalization more broadly. And efforts are being taken to address this. As noted, the forestry sector in the PRC has witnessed a phenomenal transformation over the last 3 decades. We can see the growth here that China has increased its forest cover by more than 40% over the last 3 decades. And this has come from 2 elements. First, afforestation with planted forest area, as well as naturally regenerated forests. But as we can see that the afforestation or the planting of forest has been responsible for about 40 million hectares of new forest land, but not insignificantly, the naturally regenerated forests is 22 million. And China has accounted for almost 1/3 of the increase in forested area globally over the same period, and over 2/3 in Asia and the Pacific. So this is quite an important element. for China to address decarbonization. We see that the total carbon storage is huge at 9.2 billion tons, but annually this is forests contribute about 434 million tons a year of sequestration, which is roughly 80% of the PRC's total. And but also grassland and wetland protection are important sources of not only carbon storage, but also can serve adaptation purposes in water management. Looking at how ADB has addressed low carbon rural development, we have 4 general areas where we've provided investment and policy support. The first would be in ecosystems management through afforestation, as noted, national park conservation programs, construction and restoration of vegetated wetlands, and application of bioengineering and nature-based solutions for soil and water. And some of the policy instruments we're working with are piloting forestry carbon credit systems. And then regenerative agriculture is another important component of our climate mitigation activities. And this is adopting conservation tillage and reduced use of chemical fertilizer, improve grassland monitoring and management, and also improving livestock grazing practices. And we've also been involved on the policy side with certification of organic products, as well as developing incentive payments for green agricultural production. Organic waste management is another area where we've been involved, and this is comprehensive use of straw and other what may be seen to be as agricultural wastes, solid organic waste collection and treatment, food waste recycling facilities, and effective management of livestock and manure. And with this, we've also seen entrance of the private sector and PPP arrangements for solid waste management. And also, not the least, the promotion of renewable energy and including biogas production from livestock waste. And again, in the policy domain, we're looking at carbon markets to strengthen the profitability of energy productions. I also just like to note over the last 3 years, my division at ADB, we've done a little over 300 million in climate finance in split between adaptation and mitigation, but we would like to see that increase. Now, let me just describe 3 projects that show how this is applied through our portfolio in partnership with the PRC. The first I'd like to talk about is the Silk Road Ecological Protection and Rehabilitation Project. This rehabilitates degraded forests and wetlands and enhances its ecosystems. The project is across 3 provinces with a total cost of about 325 million and about 200 million in ADB financing. Now, most notably, this project has accounted for 129 million in climate finance for mitigation activities. And this mainly comes through afforestation and reforestation of forest land, but also restoring wetlands and catchments. And some of the innovative features is not just reforestation, but a close to nature approach where we're rehabilitating forests and wetlands to their more natural conditions with a look to biodiversity and other concerns, which also supports ecotourism development. The project also uses high-level technology such as drones, real-time web-based mapping tools, and remote sensing. And that's for approval and commitment this year. The next example is the Green Farmland Demonstration and High Quality Agricultural Development Project, again in the Yellow River Basin for 2022. And this promotes sustainable and resilient agricultural food systems. This is across 7 provinces and 1 autonomous region. And the total cost is estimated at 435 million, with ADB financing about 200 million. And again, we have a significant greenhouse gas emission component with a financing of $67 million. And this is mainly going to be through reducing the use of chemical fertilizer and much better use of crop residue and waste and livestock manure. Some of the innovations here too are working at the county level to take these broader national policies down and working with counties for target setting and monitoring and evaluation, as well as an innovative finance component to stimulate investment in more sustainable agricultural practices. And lastly, I'd just like to mention the Jiangxi Ganzhou Rural Vitalization and Comprehensive Environment Project. This was approved last year, and Ganzhou Municipality in Jiangxi Province is the primary entity involved in the project. And we see 54 million in climate finance and again, significant greenhouse gas reductions at over 100 kilotons. And again, this is through forestation. This is the pilot forest credit program that we're looking at that can be scaled up, as well as a financial intermediary loan for rural development. Again, the innovations here are the Sustainable Forest Carbon Sink program to improve forest management and control greenhouse gas emissions. This is a financial program that is self-sustaining, as well as support to SMEs for improved agricultural practices. Let me just conclude with a few remarks. First, the PRC's and the ADB's climate change goals are ambitious, but they're well aligned. And they're also well aligned with developing climate resilient rural economies, not only in the PRC, but for other ADB member countries in the region. Agriculture and rural economies, they do account for a significant part of greenhouse gas emissions, but as we've seen, there are methods to mitigate these emissions. And low carbon rural development can contribute both to climate change adaptation and mitigation simultaneously, as well as promoting the rural vitalization agenda, including improved livelihoods and more sustainable livelihoods to local communities. Next steps: further mainstream climate change in all our lending and non-lending operations. Scale up our support to the National Program on Carbon Neutrality and Climate Change Adaptation in the PRC, and very importantly to our program and what this forum is all about, is facilitating South-South knowledge sharing on the model of low carbon rural development and ecosystem-based adaptation for ADB members. Thank you very much, Yolanda.
Thank you very much, Tom. I think we have to take a group photo first. Akiko?
Yes, Yolanda. So please, all the speakers, panelists, turn on your video, please. Now, can you also turn on your video? Do we see her? Okay, Ray, you can go ahead. Everyone smile, please. Okay, I think we are good to go. Thank you. Over to you, Yolanda.
Thank you very much, Tom, for the comprehensive presentation that has set the perfect background to move on to the panel discussion. Before we start, let me remind our distinguished panelists to kindly keep their remarks to a maximum of 6 minutes to allow for sufficient time for the Q&A session. So let me introduce our first panelist, Ms. Miao Cheng, Deputy Director of the Department of Farmland Enhancement at the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs in the PRC, with whom ADB has long-standing cooperation, promoting sustainable and climate-resilient agriculture. At present, we are working together in flagship projects in the Yangtze and Yellow River, among others. I would like to invite her to share her ministry's experiences on scaling up policy efforts to promote climate-resilient agriculture in partnership with ADB in the PRC, including lessons that could be shared with other DMCs and her views on regional cooperation opportunities. You have the floor, Ms. Chiang. Are you with us, Miao? In the interest of time, let me move to our next expert, Ms. Yiqing Song, professor of the Chinese Academy of Sciences. She has a long professional trajectory working on community-based climate change mitigation and adaptation models in various countries. Ms. Song, could you please introduce some examples of innovative community-based models which, in your experience, are relevant for climate change mitigation efforts in the PRC and other developing member countries in Asia? In addition, could you please share what role do you expect ADB can play in disseminating good models and practices in the region? The floor is yours. Sorry, you are mute. Can you unmute yourself? Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, the organizers, for the invitation, for the opportunity to share my experience and perspectives. I would like to share a few slides to go through. Okay. Yes, I only have 6 minutes, but with photos and the slide, I think it's more easy for you to see more vividly to what we have done at the community level, adaptation and mitigation. This is our approach and also our core perspectives. In the very middle part, you will see that the deep green part is overlapped in the interlinked part of climate change, livelihood, and sustainable development, which we think is very important to use this systematical approach to address the real issues in climate change at the community level. Example one is Chinese Academy's strategic priority program in the past 5 years, and it's a big programs covering more than 11 countries, pan-Himalaya areas, and we are only responsible for task 3, which demonstrates the policy piloting the site. The site is in Yunnan, and trying to link the traditional knowledge with scientific knowledge, enhance their knowledge systems and the whole bioculture systems. Here is the location of the 4 villages we are working with in the upstream of Yangtze River. And it's a very beautiful paralyzed river area, you can see that. But in the last 10 years, they experienced big spring drought and flood, summer flood, experienced serious climate change damages. So we're trying to help these 4 villages, and they trying to collaborate by themselves, the 4 villages working together and to manage it together. This is the method they are working with. The natural factors are water, seed, forest, and land. And the women play a very significant roles in all the 4 communities. Here you can see this is the water management systems. This is in ancient irrigation systems, but we're trying to enhance it. This is the community seed bank. This is a women doing the seed selection. Those are the seed exchange fair. And it's good news that last year they win the global biodiversity case from the CBD, and those group they are the community leaders went to Kunming Corporate 15 to receive the reward very proudly. I'm very proud of it. Okay, this is the first example. The other more examples, as Tom or Thomas already mentioned, there's a lot of innovations in China. Solar energy in land restoration for cash crop, green cash crop. This is the lead by the He Renjiang, the Tsinghua University professor. He is really very innovative in this. And agroecology and circular farming in Jiangsu, Guangdong, and other provinces for low carbon, for example, through biogas and something. And green finance and credit for green enterprises in Jiangxi and other provinces. So during the time limitation, I cannot mention them all. Fine. The final reflection and suggestions I'm giving here is the mitigation and adaptation for climate change, for resilient climate are important. These two are quite interlinked. We need a broad approach on this. And linking traditional knowledge with scientific knowledge at community level and with private sector partnership are quite important for green transformation. Supporting community-based collective action, because climate change, adaptation, mitigation, they are really a collective action needed. And community level bio-based value chains for enhanced rural and urban are very crucial, especially through food system transformation. And this is really a crucial link between rural and urban. Policy piloting cases, we are trying to doing this. This is quite important method to really show and demonstrate good models and scaling out and up. And the South-South exchange, knowledge sharing, and capacity building are important for China, among China, and with other Asian countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Song, for staying within the time and also for sharing your very valuable reflections and suggestions. So we are taking very good note of those. Let me see if we can get Ms. Miao. Now, are you with us?
我在，能听到吗？
Please go ahead.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
好的，非常感谢。Thank you very much. It's a great honor to participate in this forum. The Farm Development Department of Mara has maintained a long-term cooperation with ADB. On Yangtze River Basin and the Yellow River Basin, we implemented 2 ADB lending projects to promote climate adaptation agriculture development. I have 3 personal reflections or experiences. First is that we have to identify a good entry point, which is in line with the current rural and agriculture development strategy and priorities. No matter it's a green corridor of a Yangtze River Basin or the yellow. Sorry, the interpreter cannot hear the speaker.
Also, Miao, we cannot see the slides. So I don't know if you're sharing them. And I believe we are still having some technical issues. So let me, apologies, Meow. I will, in the interest of time, I will invite our next speaker, Mr. Srinivasan Ancha, ADB's principal climate change specialist in the Southeast Asia Department, who has managed a wide range of ADB activities on climate change mitigation and adaptation in agriculture and natural resources, to share his remarks. Srini, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Yolanda. I think you can hear me well.
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And I'll be brief in view of the time limitations. Basically, in the Southeast Asia, we have a portfolio of about $2.7 billion covering the rural development sectors. And we are also thinking of another $2.7 billion of pipeline over the next 3 years. Basically, we have 4 key areas, just like what Tom has presented. 40% of our resources go towards irrigation, water resource management, drought and flood management, etc. And about 25% go to about agri-food value chains covering crops, forests, livestock, and fisheries. And also about only 5 to 6% towards environment and natural resource management, which is biodiversity, natural capital protection, etc. And we also have about 25% looking at the multi-sector integrated rural development and also sector reforms. In all these 4 areas, we look at the low carbon opportunities in 4 ways. One is in terms of the reduced energy use, for example, through reduced use of energy-intensive fertilizers and pesticides, and also improving the energy use efficiency across the value chain operations. And the second area is mainly through promoting renewable energy, whether it is for irrigation, whether it is for value chain operations in terms of promoting solar energy or bio-based energy, etc. And third area is looking at the agricultural residue management, including reduction of food loss and waste. So fourth area is looking at promoting carbon sequestration. These are the 4 areas where we are looking at the low carbon opportunities in all our investments. I just want to highlight 2 large investments which are in the region. This is Greater Mekong Sub-Region Climate Friendly Agribusiness Value Chain Sector Project. This project is being implemented in Cambodia, Laos, PDR, and Myanmar. And this project also promotes a lot of regional cooperation within the Greater Mekong Sub-Region. Here we are looking at, the total project size is around $250 million. Maybe mitigation financing, maybe around $30 or $35 million. So basically, we are looking at the promotion of solar energy in agricultural cooperatives or solar energy for irrigation systems, and especially for drip irrigation in mango orchards, for example, in Cambodia. And we are also looking at biogas and biodigester development, and also compost huts, and also use of energy efficient post-harvest equipment and farm machinery. And we are also promoting all the opportunities for carbon sequestration in areas. In Laos PDR, for example, we are also focusing on biofertilizer production and also organic farming. So we feel that the overall emission intensity can be reduced. And in Myanmar, we are also promoting solar energy for tube wells in terms of irrigation efforts. Another regional project we are now developing, which is the GMS Cross-Border Livestock Health and Value Chains Improvement Project. This is also mainly looking at various low carbon options, including improving the animal productivity. Thereby, the greenhouse gas emission intensity per unit of livestock product is going to get reduced. And also, we are looking at the forage use efficiency and forage production, and thereby improving the carbon sequestration. We also have a regional technical assistance program. For example, the GMS Sustainable Agriculture and Food Security Program, where the colleagues from PRC, we are collaborating with MARA, and where the opportunities for greening the agribusiness supply chains in terms of reducing water, carbon footprint, and also waste along the value chain. We want to reduce the waste. So, and we are also looking at how best we can finance small and medium enterprises involved in greening their operations. So this particular TA, there is a lot of cooperation in terms of South-South cooperation from China to the rest of GMS countries. And similarly, we have another regional program called GMS Climate Change and Environmental Sustainability Program. Here again, we are looking at the low carbon transitions in agriculture, energy, and transport, primarily focusing on rural areas. So whether it is rural renewable energy, rural transport, or rural value chains, I mean agricultural value chains. So here we are also looking at the application of digital technologies for monitoring the climate action. So there also we are getting a lot of support from PRC. So then we also have, of course, country-specific initiatives. For example, in Thailand, we have a program focusing on bio-based circular economy, where we are looking at improving carbon sequestration through biochar, and also solar irrigation, and also digital agriculture. In Philippines, for example, we have a project which is completed, but focusing on eco-towns, where the LGUs are really looking at opportunities for greenhouse gas emission reduction. So the eco-town is basically like a climate-smart eco-town or climate-smart village, basically scaling up climate-smart village concept, wherein we are looking at nitrogen efficiency, carbon efficiency, or energy efficiency, etc. So in Indonesia also, we have something called community-focused forest investments to address deforestation and forest degradation. There again, we are looking at opportunities not only for carbon sequestration through afforestation and deforestation, but also looking at how best we can use the forest residues and produce energy. So these are some of the operations that we have in place. The thing is that we are also looking at new opportunities, for example, agrivoltaic installations, wherein we can combine both agriculture as well as solar energy options. So we are also looking at the potential for using the wind energy utilization in rural areas to meet the energy needs of agro-based value chains. So there are some of these initiatives. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rini, for sharing these inspiring examples from which we can learn and share throughout the region. Let me now invite Mr. Wei Liu, Senior Sustainability Scientist at the Luohan Academy of the Alibaba Group, to share some of the interesting experiences and initiatives that they are leading, contributing to carbon neutral and rural development, like, for instance, the ant forest. Over to you.
Thank you. And thanks for mentioning ant forest, from the Alibaba and Ant Group, which definitely benefited a lot of, like rural populations in the past. And of course, we're doing a lot more than planting trees. What I'm going to introduce is some of our recent programs and initiatives. And Alibaba's core strength is in digitalization, from digital technology to digital economy. And I'm going to introduce, 3 aspects, on farmland, and from farmland to market, and also at rural economy. And if time allows, I also going to introduce a little bit about our potential or in adaptation for rural adaptation. For farmlands, it was mentioned in the keynote speech that there's actually it's actually a big potential, like a source of emission. And here we apply our digital technology, especially on AI. And big data into various programs. For example, we have this collaboration with China Academy of Agricultural Sciences on smart breeding project to better model plant breeding, genetic data, and to have this integrated biotech information tech platform, to have seeds breeding program that give higher productivity. And at a broader level, we develop some of these precision agriculture systems. On what we call digital farm systems, already implemented in projects in 11 provinces, which integrates data from farmland, from crops, the environments, and the agricultural processes, as well as market information, so that agriculture entrepreneurs could apply a higher level of standard in its production, and also benefits the sales process, overall improve efficiency, and lead to potentially less material use and carbon emission, and including less fertilizers. And one of the examples is we have this future orchard integrated solution in Henan province. So integrate, to make fruit production, with higher quality and productivity. And also, as many of us know that food production and consumption is about a quarter of global emissions, and 6% of that, 6% of total global emission is food waste, of which 2/3 is in the production stage. So how some of our programs actually could help cut this emission. We work with both rural and county level stakeholders, to help build production capacity closer to farmland. So this way, there's much less waste from croplands to the factories, for example. And we're also over the years built a better e-commerce system so that farmers can have better accessibility to market information, and this way also shortens avoids those waste in farmland. And our logistics system, the Cainiao logistic, over the year have greatly improved accessibility, the distance between rural areas, especially in Western China, and the big markets. And this way, again, it saves, reduce food waste, from the origin. And at the same time, we also apply our digital capacity in other, disciplines, to help diversify rural economy. For example, recreation. In a way, in my words, like broaden bio-based economy to also include gastronomy and tourism. And also we apply our digital capacity to help with the rural government's capacity to better manage both their agricultural information as well as other information. Last, I want to mention, some of our work and potentially helping with adaptation. Our AI capacity has already been, able to weather nowcast, with hours of projection, to help farmers with better early warning and preparation to potential extreme weather events. And also, we have examples showing how our retail network could help disaster-stricken farmers to better plan their production after disaster, in the reconstruction stage. So we're very keen to learn more about broader programs initiated by like ADB, MOA, and learn how we can better align our programs with the more integrated and long-term programs. And happy to share experience lessons as well as our tools. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Liu, for sharing Alibaba's far-reaching successful experiences. We are running out of time, unfortunately. It's a fascinating topic, but let's move on to the Q&A session. And let me please first thank all the speakers for sharing so many interesting insights. I think we have a couple of questions already in the chat. The first one, perhaps, Tom, if you would like to respond. Will ADB encourage solar energy development?
Thanks, Yolanda. Let me see if I can get the video here. Anyways, yeah, I think ADB does. We do encourage renewables, and in fact, that's a significant part of our energy portfolio, and have been long engaged in getting things going with renewables and solar in particular. And we will continue to do that. However, we just want to make sure that all of the solar materials that ADB does use in its projects are coming from places with in accordance with ILO standards and other practices. So we very much have a strong and growing portfolio for encouraging renewables, although ADB doesn't at this point really need to be as engaged, since the cost has come down dramatically and private sector is driving a lot of it. But we are still supporting, but want to make sure we do it responsibly. Over.
Thank you, Tom. And we have one more question quickly. Sorry, Srini, for pressure. And we are being asked if wetlands are a greenhouse gas source or a sink. So yes or no question.
I mean, it is both yes and no. It all depends on how we manage the wetlands. So the question is that if there are a lot of submerged stuff, I mean, wetlands are a major source of methane also. So the question is that to what extent these wetlands are adequately managed, but they can also be potential sink if they are well managed. I mean, this is where the human interventions of wetlands is crucial. So in general, I mean, with the simple management systems, wetland can be effective sinks. But if we don't manage them properly, they can also contribute mainly green methane. So.
Thank you very much. And I think it's time to close the session. Thank you all very much for the dynamic and interesting session. We have learned a lot about the important role that the bio-based value chains can play in carbon neutrality and rural prosperity. Disseminating these ideas and experiences is the key to help others finding successful paths to achieve the same goals. And this brings us to the end of the session. Thank you very much for your participation.